I am sitting here filming in my brand new flat in Wellington, and I am thinking about all of my life choices, such as moving to a different country in a global pandemic. And let me tell you what, it has not been cheap, but it has been worth it. So today I want to share with you exactly how much it has cost me to move to New Zealand, all the details, all the juicy goss, because let's be real, we all love watching videos about money and what people spend. If you're interested in that and you want to see more on my channel about finances and my mistakes and regrets, as well as good purchases I've made, make sure you thumbs up this video. Welcome back everyone who has watched my channel before. Thank you for your support, and a big welcome as well if you are new. Make sure you hit subscribe down below for more videos. So let's start with my citizenship. Go watch the previous video that I'll have linked up here about the story of how I actually got my New Zealand citizenship. I spent $390 applying for my citizenship and passport. And when it comes to visas and citizenships, that's actually very, very affordable. I was lucky I am a dual citizen through my parents, so it was really just applying for a passport. Many people will spend a lot more money to be able to live in New Zealand. Next up, I booked my flights to New Zealand. So first of all, I had to book my flight from Tasmania to Sydney for Christmas, and also because you can't fly directly from Tasmania to New Zealand, and that cost me about $72 through Jetstar. But the big flight that I had to buy was Sydney to Auckland. Now, in a typical year pre-pandemic, this flight would cost me about $200, but I had to spend a whopping $712 to get from Sydney to Auckland. So yes, it was way more expensive than normal, but I just had to count the cost. And that also includes the extra cost for baggage. Because I was moving, I needed to take some bigger bags. Even though I did pre-organize to have extra luggage, I was still over when I got to the airport. I should have known that I couldn't trust my sister's, handy Kmart scales. So I did have to spend an extra $100 shipping a box of clothes to my address in Wellington. Thankfully, they arrived safe and sound, so that wasn't a worry. And a little disclaimer here, because this is my very first time moving out of home, I don't own any of my own furniture or excess homewares or goods, because I've been living with my parents and living overseas in various places, so I didn't need to account for any of those costs, whereas many people will who are doing this move. Just sliding this clip in here after I finished filming, that I forgot to mention that I also spent about $400 when I was in Sydney on my way to New Zealand seeing my family. So that is included in the total at the end, even though it really isn't directly to do with that, but just thought I'd let you know. A big chunk of my money went to paying for managed isolation. This is a cost that wouldn't have existed pre-COVID, but it was something that I had to factor in moving countries in a pandemic. Now, the issue with this is if I had left New Zealand before August the 11th, I wouldn't need to pay because I'm a returning citizen settling here. But because I returned to Australia on August the 23rd, I am liable to pay for my isolation, and it does cost me in total $3,100. So yes, I spent $3K to sit in a hotel room. But I completely understand why I was charged for that. I think it's completely fair enough. I don't want to be wasting the taxpayers' money. It was my decision to go back to Australia, so that's that. Another huge cost was securing accommodation here in Wellington. I made the decision to confirm a flat before I moved and caught the flight over, just for peace of mind, but it did mean that I was paying rent for a while before I even arrived here, which was pretty painful, but I tried to justify it because I was at my parents' house at the time paying no rent. So yeah, I tried. Before I even arrived to the room, I did pay $990 to the girl who moved out, whose room I was taking, and that was for the bond payment to get onto the lease, and also to purchase furniture off her that was already in the room, which I'm so thankful for, made the move in much easier. I have also spent $1,620 on rent so far, including this week's rent, my first week in this apartment. Yes, it was a lot of money to spend without me even being here, but the Wellington rental market is rough. I knew I would have trouble trying to find something if I just did it when I got here. I'm just going to leave it in the past, be thankful that I have somewhere to live, and just accept the reality of spending that money. Also, I'm really happy with my flat, and I think it was definitely worth what I paid for it. Next up, I had to purchase a new phone plan. I went through 2 degrees here in New Zealand, and it's costing me $55 a month. I can call back home in Oz, all over New Zealand, get data, all of that jazz. So I did have to make that payment when I arrived here. And that will be ongoing while I'm living because, you know, a girl gotta use her phone. And now we have reached a section where I talk about my car. I was on the fence of buying a car in New Zealand for a really long time because Wellington is quite easy to get around when it comes to public transport, and my flat is very central. I can walk into the city. So not buying a car sounded like a really nice thing to do. But I also know that I want to go and explore out of Wellington. I want to be able to return to Auckland where my family is whenever I want to. So I started considering, should I, shouldn't I? And then, right on time, a family friend offered for me to look at their car that they were selling for a really good deal. So I purchased a car off of them for $1,500, which is an amazing steal. Thankfully, cars are cheaper here in New Zealand than Australia. That is one thing that the Kiwis have on the Aussies economically. So I feel like that really pushed me over the edge, and I thought, oh, why not? And it's a really good little car, nothing flash, but it's been well serviced, only has 140,000 Ks on it. I'm really happy with the purchase. Parking in Wellington has already proved to be difficult, and because I am so central, I have to pay for a parking permit, which costs $195 a year. Plus, of course, I purchased third-party car insurance. I didn't pay for comprehensive because it's really not worth that much, but third-party insurance was $156, which is great value. And then on top of that, I joined AA here in New Zealand, which basically means if I break down anywhere, they'll come save me. And that full membership costs $129 as well. All of that money added up over time with the car and expenses coming left, right, and center. But I think in the long run, it's worth it. I am here for at least 3 years. Also, it cost me $120 in petrol to drive from Auckland to Wellington. Just thought I'd add that in there because, you know, Wellington is where I'm living, so I had to get to my destination somehow. In addition to this, I need a license to drive here in New Zealand, and I can drive here legally on my Australian license, but I wanted to convert it to a New Zealand license for a form of ID, and because I can't drive here on my Australian license for too long, so I did have to get extra information for that, for my driving record from the Tasmanian government, which cost me $16, and then it has cost me $50 to convert my license as well. The last big expense that I have used my money on recently has been furnishing my room here in my flat and also buying linen. Go watch my last video where I move into my flat and you can see what it looks like. In total, from a quick Briscoes and the warehouse trip, I spent $321. This was linen, lights, toiletries, all those bits and pieces that you've got to have in your new flat. All right, so they were all the expenses. I don't think I would do anything differently though. At the end of the day, I am still saving money being here than studying in Australia, and I'm really happy with my decision. Without further ado, let's add up the grand total for everything I have spent moving to New Zealand during the pandemic. I haven't actually totaled this up myself yet, so it may be a bit of a rude awakening. We have a grand total, ladies and gentlemen. I have spent $9,000, I can't even say it, it's so shocking. I've spent $9,917, just under the 10 grand mark. I'm pretty proud of myself. I'd say about 8 grand was my guesstimate of how much I have spent, so it's definitely a little bit over that, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and thumbs up this video. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in more finance-based videos. I'd love to make them for you, but if you're not gonna watch them, then why would I bother? Have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time here on my channel.